Okay, so what if one of the sharpest philosophical minds of the entire 20th century decided that, the best way to get at the truth wasn't through dense academic essays, but through messy, passionate, complicated novels? Well, that's exactly the fascinating world of Iris Murdoch we're about to dive into. It's this place where huge ideas and even bigger human hearts just completely collide.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get right to the heart of what made her so unique, that constant dance between being a philosopher and a storyteller. Then, we'll uncover the moral compass that pretty much guided all her work. From there, we'll see how these big ideas actually come to life in her incredible stories, before finally figuring out why her voice still matters so much today.
All right, let's kick things off with this core idea, the philosopher-novelist. And this isn't just some fancy title, it's really the central tension and honestly the brilliant solution that defined her entire life's work. It was this constant balancing act between two worlds that, let's be honest, rarely even speak the same language.
So you have to ask, right? What really happens when a mind trained in pure, abstract logic turns its attention to the chaotic and often totally illogical world of human relationships? For Murdoch, the answer wasn't just interesting, it was a revolution in what a novel could even do.
See, at her core, Iris Murdoch was just obsessed with the biggest questions you can ask. What does it actually mean to be a good person? How does love really work? And she spent her whole career wrestling with these ideas, not in some sterile laboratory, but in the messy, wonderful reality of human connection.
And she wasn't just, dabbling in writing. She was a literary force of nature, publishing over 26 novels. I mean, just imagine that. More than 26 distinct worlds, and every single one was a testing ground for her most profound philosophical questions, filled with characters who feel just as real and conflicted as we are.
And that brings us to what I like to call the engine room of her work, Murdoch's moral universe. Because to really get her novels, you first have to understand the powerful philosophical ideas that were fueling every single page she ever wrote.
Her most important philosophical work is probably The Sovereignty of Good, and it was a direct challenge to the thinking of her time. In an age that was really focused on the self, Murdoch made this incredibly radical argument. True morality isn't about what you can gain. No, it's about the very difficult act of truly seeing and caring for the reality of other people.
Just think about how different that was for a second. While a lot of philosophers were talking about cold, calculated self-interest, Murdoch was out there championing a morality that was rooted in something way messier and, more human. Love, empathy, and that constant struggle to connect with what's good in the world.
And this right here is her true genius. As one analysis puts it so perfectly, her legacy lies in her ability to weave profound philosophical questions into engaging narratives. She didn't just tell you about her ideas, she made you feel them through the lives of her characters.
So how did she actually do it? Let's move from the theory to the practice and dive into her stories of life and love. This is where we get to see her philosophy jump right off the academic page and actually start breathing. Across her long and amazing career, a few books really stand out as perfect examples of her craft. So we're going to look at 3 key milestones. Her fantastic debut, Under the Net, a really powerful mid-career book about community called The Bell, and then a complex masterpiece on love and art, The Black Prince.
Okay, let's start at the beginning, with her debut, Under the Net.
So, this novel throws us in with a struggling writer in London who's always searching for freedom but keeps bumping up against his own responsibilities. The title itself is a perfect Murdoch metaphor. It's all about the struggle to escape the net of society, of language, and maybe even of our own self-deceptions.
Now, let's jump forward a few years to 1958, and we have The Bell.
This one drops us into a totally different world, a lay religious community. It's such a brilliant setup, like a social pressure cooker, where she can really explore that timeless conflict between our own personal desires and our duty to other people. The novel's main symbol, the bell, ends up representing both that pull towards a higher spiritual life and the rigid social rules that can trap us. And finally, let's talk about The Black Prince, which is just one of her most dazzling and complex novels.
On the surface, it's the story of a writer whose life is completely upended by an obsessive love affair. But underneath all that, Murdoch is asking us these incredibly tough questions. Can great art come from a life that's morally questionable?
What's the real cost of artistic ambition? It's a challenging, dizzying book that you just won't forget.
So, after a whole lifetime spent wrestling with these enormous ideas across dozens of novels, what is the Murdoch legacy? Why do these books, written decades ago, feel so urgent and so necessary right now?
Her legacy was really built on this unique kind of formula. Step 1, she started with a powerful philosophical foundation. Step 2, she populated her worlds with characters so psychologically complex they honestly feel like people you know. Step 3, she wove her big questions into their stories, not as lectures, but as things they were actually living through. And the result? She became an absolute titan of 20th century literature. At the end of the day, her work endures because it's more than just a collection of stories. It's a lens. It's a way of looking at our own complicated lives, our own struggles, and seeing them with a lot more clarity and compassion. She never gives you easy answers, but she always leaves you asking better, deeper questions.
And really, that's the final invitation her work gives us. In a world that's always pushing for simple summaries and quick fixes, Iris Murdoch's books are this powerful reminder. They ask us, how can we find the courage to turn towards the beautiful, messy, and philosophical complexities of what it really means to be